Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Depende sa mga tanong. Bumura si Jam, ano? Basta pa na rin bumura si Jam. Oo. Yes, sir. DOJ, sir. Halos nga, sir, tumagal dito. Halos tumabay dito. May nakaiwan dito. Baka anting-anting ito.
Okay. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Uh, First of all, I would like to recognize my colleagues in the Committee on Appropriations na kasama ko ngayon. Physically, si Vice Chair Manix Dalipe and
Present, Mr.
si
Chairman.
Kong Tyron Agabas. I would now call this meeting to order, the briefing of CHED. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our CHED family, headed by our chairman, Dr. Prospero de Vera III. Then we have here, also physically present, Attorney Cinderella Benitez, the head of the Unifast, Executive Director of Unifast, Attorney Ryan Estives, Attorney Septon de la Cruz, Director 4, and Ms. Ella Fanyo, Executive Assistant. Good afternoon po, Chairman, and to the rest of the CHED family who are physically present, and to those members of the CHED family in the Zoom. Comsec, will recognize the members. Comsec, please recognize the members of the House who are present now in the Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May we now acknowledge the members who are present via Zoom. Deputy Speaker Divine Grace Yu, Deputy Speaker Ferdinand Hernandez, Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Abante Jr., Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez, Deputy Majority Leader Cristal Bagaching, Senior Deputy Minority Leader Janet Garin, Deputy Minority Leader Shari Antan, Deputy Minority Leader Arler Joseph Kabadbat, Senior Vice Chairperson Elenita Milagros Aileen Ermita Buhain, Vice Chairperson Choderico Haresco Jr., Vice Chairperson Paul Ruiz Daza, Vice Chairperson Manuel Suviri, Vice Chairperson Jocelyn Silim Caichong, Vice Chairperson Jose Pingping Tijada, Vice Chairperson Romeo Halosos Jr., Vice Chairperson Ed Christopher Go, Vice Chairperson Jose Antonio Cuya C. Alvarado, and the following representatives: Alfel Bascug, Angel Marcos Barba, Pablo Ortega, Gerardo Jerry Boy Espina Jr., Jose Bonito Singson, Christine Alexi B. Tutor, Jocelyn Fortuno, Emery Lollipop Juanyo Dizon, Franz Castro, Gabriel Bordado, Alan Duhali, Jose Francisco Kiko Benitez, Enrico Pineda, Mark Go, Ferdinand Gaite, Edgar Charto, Vicente Ching Veloso III, Sherlyn Banas Nograles, Florida Rida Robes, Alan T., Manuel Cabuchan III, Raymond Democrito Mendoza, Ansarudin Abdul Malik Adjong, Rico Heron, and Robert Ace Barbers. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comsec. We will now consider the proposed budget of the Commission on Higher Education. I will now give the floor to Chairman Popoy for the presentation of his budget.
Thank,
Chairman Popo, you have the floor.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the esteemed members of the House. I have a PowerPoint presentation that has just been flashed to guide our discussions on the proposed National Expenditure Program for CHED for fiscal year 2022. Next slide, please. Since this budget proposal that we are submitting is the last proposed national expenditure program under the Duterte administration, we thought it proper that the whole presentation is anchored on a report and assessment of the gains achieved in higher education under the Duterte administration. This was recognized by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte in the last SONA, where he said, to unburden our people of the hefty cost of tertiary education, my administration worked with Congress to pass a landmark legislation that has remained unpassed for so many years, the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act in 2017, which provides free education to college students in state universities. So this legacy social justice program of the President, we have put on the right side a summary of the gains achieved under the Duterte administration, and we would make reference to some of this data in our presentation. But the poster on the right is a summary of our major achievements, including increases in enrollment, beneficiaries of free higher ed, ensuring the internationalization of Philippine higher education, and others. Next slide, please. So, how was Philippine higher education during the Duterte administration? Next slide, please. Over the past 3 years, the trends in higher education institutions and enrollment in the Philippines shows that the number of higher education institutions has been constant over the past 3 years. There's a little less than 2,000 public and private universities in the Philippines, spread over the whole archipelago. The enrollment figures, however, have continued to increase over the past years. We can say that enrollment in higher education now has normalized. It went down starting 2016, 2017 with the implementation of senior high. So it dipped to a little less than 3 million, but in academic year 2020-2021, 3.6 million students are now enrolled in higher education. So our higher education system has fully stabilized compared to the period before K-12. What has changed in enrollment, aside from the increasing enrollment, is a change in the distribution of students enrolled across public and private universities. Where before the Duterte administration, the distribution was about 55% of students were enrolled in private universities and 45% were enrolled in public universities. This last school year, the distribution of enrollment is close to 50-50 already. That means the many more students are now going into public universities as a choice because of free higher education. So again, the enrollment has increased and the distribution has changed under the Duterte administration. Next slide, please. Free higher ed has also sent the correct signals to our young Filipinos so that the participation rate in higher education has dramatically increased over the past couple of years. 32.9% of students who are tertiary level age group are actually enrolled in higher education. This has dramatically increased over the past few years. So in terms of enrollment in higher education, in terms of participation rate, we are now at par with our neighbors in the ASEAN region, including Malaysia, Thailand, and the others. In the past, our participation rate was lower compared to our neighbors. This is also reflected in the next slide, which shows that if you look at the whole higher education, including TVET programs or enrollees, we are now at par with Malaysia, higher than Indonesia, Brunei, and Vietnam in terms of the participation rate or the percentage of students who should be in universities and TVET programs who are actually enrolled. So this is a very good sign. That means over the next few years, we will have more students who will be completing higher education. Next slide, please. For our accomplishments, in terms of our achievements over the past year, next please. In terms of compliance with Sustainable Development Goals, which is anchored on our development plan, we have more than achieved the required ratio of male to female enrollees. The global target is 1:1. That means for every male that is enrolled, one female should also be enrolled. This global target has been ongoing for the past 2 decades because in many countries, female participation rate in higher education is low, especially in the Middle East and many African countries. In the Philippines, it is now the reverse. For every one male, 1.24 females are enrolled in higher education. So there are now more women than men enrolled in higher education. So we have exceeded global targets. We have also increased our faculty with master's degrees from 38 to 40%, although we have not been as successful in getting our faculty to get their PhD degrees. Next slide, please. For human capital development, our targets have all been accomplished over the past 3 years. The number of universities and colleges that are internationally ranked, we have exceeded our target for 2020. Our target was 8 Philippine universities recognized among the best in Asia. There are now 14 Philippine universities globally ranked. The graduates in science, engineering, manufacturing, and construction has also increased. And the number of HEDF graduates, these are graduates of the equivalent of ALS in higher education, we have exceeded our targets for 2019 and 2020. Next, please. Of course, what everyone recognizes is the major social justice legislation under the Duterte administration. For academic year 2020-2021, there are now 1.6 million young Filipinos in more than 200 public universities that no longer pay tuition and miscellaneous fees. So our achievement rate is 0 before the Duterte administration because all students had tuition and miscellaneous to 1.6 million as of last academic year. In addition, we have more than 400,000 tertiary education subsidy grantees. Again, our achievement rate before the Duterte administration is that there were 20,000 slots for the equivalent of tests. There are now 435,000 slots. And we have a student loan program that is very good. You don't pay interest if you pay your loan within the year. We have been able to help 636 students who took loans under the 1 billion loan facility of free higher ed. We thank Congress because this was made possible by the continuous increase in the budget for UniFast. For fiscal year 2021, we were allocated 18.8 billion for free higher ed, 25.2 billion for tests. And we continue with our 1 billion program for loan program. The budget for TVET is now part of the test budget. It is not done through CHED anymore. Next slide, please. There are other significant achievements under this administration. The tertiary education subsidy shows that there are now more students in private universities than public universities who are receiving subsidy from government. This was the concern when Congress was passing the law. There were criticisms that RA 10931 will only help public universities. Right now, both for TES and also for Tulong Dunong, the number of beneficiaries in private universities has dramatically increased. But we don't only provide help to students, we don't only provide access through RA 10931. There are existing scholarship programs of the Commission. One of them is student financial assistance, or what we call merit scholarship. These are given to students based on grades. So there are 28,000 young Filipinos who have very high grades that get subsidy from government. We also provide scholarship program to children of sugar workers through the Sugar Regulatory Administration. And during the COVID period under Bayanihan 2, we were able to assist 60,000 students by reducing their unpaid fees from private schools by 5,000 pesos. This was through the B2 Help program, which was funded out of a 300 million allocation given by Congress in Bayanihan 2. So overall, an additional 91,000 students have been assisted last year through various grants by CHED in addition to free higher ed, tertiary education subsidy, and tulong dunong. Next slide, please. We continue to thank Congress for continuing its financial support to our cash grant for medical students. This started in 2017 through a realignment of Congress of funds. Last year, 1,616 students in our 8 state universities with medical programs received cash grants so that they did not have to pay tuition fees anymore. So our students in the 8 state universities can apply for tuition subsidy. This is funded through a realignment of Congress of 167 million pesos. Because of the approval of the Dr. Parasabayan law, the Commission has approved the medical program of 3 additional state universities: Cebu Normal University, University of Southeastern Philippines, and Western Mindanao State University. All these 3 new SUCs are opening their medical programs this school year, and we will expand the financial assistance to students in medical schools to cover the students in these 3 SUCs. So now we will have 11 state universities with medical programs that will produce more doctors who will serve in the country. Because of the Dr. Parasabayan Act, there are 5 additional SUCs that are being evaluated on whether they will be ready to have a Doctor of Medicine program. Last year, a total of 400 million was given to CHED by way of congressional realignment to assist medical facilities in SUCs for 150 million and another 250 million for medical scholarship grants in public universities. The implementing rules and regulations of the Doktor para sa Bayan Act has been approved and is ready for implementation. Several years ago, particularly in 2016, Congress allocated what is called the K-12 Fund to assist in the transition during the K-12 period. This fund is ending this year. So we'd like to report that the K-12 funds given by Congress has trained 12,000 teachers teaching senior high, provided 9,000 graduate scholarships to professors in universities, including 277 foreign scholarships, and trained 5,000 faculty members under continuing professional education. So this is our report on how the money from 2016 to 2021 was used in terms of research, in terms of extension, in terms of teaching, and in terms of scholarships. The Pikari Fund, which was initiated under the previous administration, is also about to end. The Pikari, this is a fund to develop high-level research between Philippine universities and the University of California system. It has produced almost 400 graduate students and scholars who have been trained, produced 43 research and development projects, 373 papers published in international journals, and we are changing now the direction of high-level research to cover not just Philippine universities with the University of California system, but also with other equally good international universities. Upon the instruction of Congress, we have completed the implementing rules and regulations of the major legislation passed by Congress, including the Anti-Hazing Act of 2018, Athletic Program Support Act, the Land Use Development and Infrastructure Plan, Transnational Higher Education, and Doktor para sa Bayan. So we have completed the task of crafting the IRR, so this vital landmark legislation passed by Congress can be fully implemented. Today, or this year, we are launching the biggest scholarship program for masters and PhD. RA 10931 now provides access to our students. More students are now enrolling in higher ed. We are providing access to them to pursue their dreams. We now have to make sure that we provide access to quality higher education. So this year, we have a 2.1 billion peso fund to provide for tuition and miscellaneous fees, allowances, research support for faculty members who are going to do full-time study, faculty members who are teaching full-time but will do part-time scholarships, and short-term programs. As a response to COVID, we are allowing faculty members who have lost their jobs or their teaching jobs in universities to apply for full-time scholarships so that as soon as the economy improves and they would like to go back to teaching, they will go back to teaching with the necessary graduate degrees completed. So this is one of our interventions for COVID to cover unemployed faculty and HEI personnel. So it's not just the faculty members, administrators are also covered. We are also happy to report that our efforts on transnational education has borne fruit. 3 years ago, 10 Philippine universities linked with 9 very good universities in the United Kingdom to produce 16 master's and PhD programs. So today, Filipinos can take up a degree in the Philippines and earn a degree from the United Kingdom. And we have partnered with the best universities in the UK, like the University of Reading, Liverpool, Newcastle, and Cardiff. For internationalization, as I said, we want to make sure that there is access to quality education. Scholarship for graduate studies abroad, we have been sending our faculty members to many top universities abroad on niche programs that are not available locally. These are emerging fields of expertise that are available either in the foreign universities or available through linkages between foreign universities and Philippine universities. Next slide, please. It is not only master's and PhD programs that we are offering. We continue to train faculty members and administrators who already have their degree programs but want to continue their professional development. There are now 590 faculty members and administrators in our universities that are involved in short-term professional programs with some of the best delivering institutions, including the Asian Institute of Management, Carnegie Mellon University in Australia, Saxion University in the Netherlands, Universidad Católico de Murcia in Spain, and many other universities also in the United States through the Philippine American Education Foundation. The net result of our efforts on internationalization is that the number of Philippine universities that are now ranked in the Asia ranking has dramatically increased over the past 2 years. Where before, only UP, Ateneo, De La Salle, and UST were consistently ranked in the region, in 2021, they were joined by other private universities like University of San Carlos, Mapua, Ateneo de Davao, and most important, several state universities and colleges, including Central Luzon State University, Central Mindanao University, MSU IIT, who are now ranked among the best in Asia. This is important because our universities must now look at Philippine education from a global perspective and be recognized for their efforts. In addition to these universities that are now internationally ranked. Next slide, please. We have been assisting interested Philippine universities to understand the global ranking, understand the criteria, get themselves evaluated so that they will know where they will improve, so that they will slowly reach and be included in international rankings. This is through a project we call QS Stars, where we subject our interested universities to evaluation by QS. As you see, several Philippine universities are participating here through the assistance of CHED, and many of these are state universities and colleges. Batangas State University, Benguet State University, Bicol University, Cagayan State University, Caraga State University, Cebu Technological, CLSU, CMU, Mariano Marcos State University, Visayas State University. All these universities have gone through a rigorous evaluation of their programs, their faculty, their graduates, and are now doing the corrective efforts so that they will be able to be ranked internationally. Our projection is that in the next 2 years, we will have as many as 5 of these universities which will be ranked also as among the best in the region. So this is a long list. of universities that we have assisted. In terms of COVID, the impact of COVID on the operations of CHED is that in 2019 and 2022, about 16.6 billion pesos were returned to be used for Bayanihan. In 2019, CHED returned 760 million, and in the 2020 GAA, we returned 585 million. Under NBC 580, DBM decided not to release 15.3 billion pesos. So the net impact of COVID fiscal-wise is 16.6 billion. The details of this are as follows. Next slide, please. Our voluntary return was really, we recognize that there are certain budget items that are slow-moving or cannot be used anymore for the year, and we returned it ahead of time. There were two types of activities that was impacted by COVID. One is research activities because of the restrictions of travel, the restrictions of going to certain places in the Philippines, and the closure of schools. Many of the research proposals that were targeted could not be undertaken during COVID. And so we returned some of these amounts to DBM. The other one are scholarships, particularly scholarships in foreign universities. Because of the uncertainty of COVID, uncertainty of travel, admission in other countries, we saw that there were some slow-moving items and we returned it. On the part of DBM, they did not release 15.3 billion pesos. Most of these are FLRs. So the for later release items in the CHED budget was not released in the 2020 GAA, with the agreement between CHED and DBM that some of this will be included in the 2021 GAA. And so most of this found their way in the 2021 GAA, including the non-release of the funds for RA 10931 for the second semester of academic year 2020-2021. The reasoning why this was not released is because we pay this reimbursement and test for the second semester in the first quarter of the next year because our academic year is not aligned with our fiscal year. So this amount was now included in the 2021 GAA. So most of this, although not released in 2020, were actually included in our 2021 budget. What else was the impact of COVID? We adopted a flexible learning policy in the midst of the pandemic, and we had to train a lot of our teachers on how to do flexible learning. We assisted them through content materials that are available online. More than 180,000 teachers were trained through our CHED Higher Ed Bayanihan. We recognized, of course, that while flexible learning was a good policy, there were certain courses that needed face-to-face classes. And so in July of 2020, I went to the IATF to ask that limited face-to-face classes be allowed in certain areas, in MGCQ areas, so that some courses that need hands-on experience will be able to continue to have limited face-to-face. As of July of this year, so July 2020, in January of 2021, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte allowed limited face-to-face classes in certain degree programs. And today, 13,000 students can attend face-to-face classes and more than 1,000 faculty members are able to do limited face-to-face classes. Next slide, please. I also pushed in the IATF to upgrade the prioritization of higher education frontliners for vaccination purposes. So last 15 April 2021, CHED fought for the upgrading of the vaccine prioritization of education frontliners from B1 to A4 in the IATF. We thank the IATF for agreeing to our proposal, and as a result, 9,795 students doing face-to-face classes are fully vaccinated, and more than 1,000 faculty members doing limited face-to-face are vaccinated. So we're able to put another level of safety in our limited face-to-face classes by working with the Department of Health and the IATF to get our students and faculty members doing face-to-face to be vaccinated. So as of today, 118 higher education institutions have been inspected and authorized to conduct limited face-to-face classes. And the limited face-to-face classes, as approved by the President, is limited to medical and allied health sciences. This is important because these degree programs require intensive face-to-face, medical clerkship, internship, laboratory courses, hands-on courses for these programs. We'd like to report to Congress that after we have monitored, next slide please, the monitoring of COVID-19 cases and vaccination of students shows that 74% of our students have been fully vaccinated, and the number of positive COVID-19 cases is very, very low. Only 0.3% of the students that are doing face-to-face have tested positive. They are all mild and asymptomatic. In the case of faculty members, only 1.4% of faculty members doing limited face-to-face are mild or asymptomatic. There are no deaths. There is zero hospitalization for these limited face-to-face classes. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? As a result, 3 weeks ago, I went to the IATF to request that we expand now the programs where we will allow limited face-to-face classes to cover engineering, HRM, and maritime programs. We need this expansion because these degree programs are also intensive in terms of hands-on experience, particularly in the maritime program because students have to do shipboard training. They have to board ships. And there are several international shipping companies that have already written the Philippine universities that if they cannot send their students to board the ships, they will give the quota allocation to other nationalities. So there is some urgency to expand limited face-to-face. And the IATF has endorsed the proposal and it is awaiting action by the President. Next slide, please. In terms of our utilization of the Bayanihan 2 funds, we got 2 types of funds from Congress. One is the B2Help program. This is to reduce the unpaid fees of students in private schools. We got a 300 million allocation from Congress, and we utilized almost all the funds to assist close to 60,000 students to reduce their unpaid fees by 5,000 pesos per student. In terms of the Smart Campus Initiative, it was a 3 billion fund that was given. We have obligated almost the whole amount. And we have approved and have given funds to 89 state universities and colleges for their Smart Campus programs. A maximum of 25 million grant is given to every state university to build fiber optics in their campuses, purchase higher bandwidth, establish internet facilities, audiovisual centers, etc. For our 2022 NEP, our proposed budget, or the budget first, the budget for Philippine higher education as a percentage of the total government budget has increased, and we thank Congress for continuously supporting higher education. Our expenditure on allocation as a percentage of GDP has slowly increased and is now closer to our counterparts in the region. And our ASEAN higher education expenditure as a percentage of government expenditure in allocation has also increased significantly. The driver of this increase in expenditure is really funds for RA 10931, or free higher education. For our proposed budget for 2022, we proposed a total of 62 billion pesos, and we got 52 billion pesos in our national expenditure program. There are several areas which we would like to inform Congress. We need assistance. Number one, some of the laws that were passed by Congress, we don't have the appropriation necessary to push it forward. And this includes, for example, the very important Doctor para sa Bayan law. We recommended a 1 billion peso fund to be given to upgrade the facilities of our state universities and colleges that have medical programs. We did not get any fund for that. For the support for Dr. para sa Bayan universities, we requested 500 million for medical scholarships. We got 250 million only. So the 250 million allocation is enough to cover almost 1,000 scholars under a scholarship program. The projection of the Department of Health is that in the next 4 to 5 years, the need for physicians is about more than 2,000 physicians, so we cannot cover the projected need for physicians in many parts of the country. There is also no funding for the Transnational Higher Education Program, which is a result of a law passed by Congress. What else? Of course, we would like to request for additional capital outlay, particularly for the building of the extension of CHED, and to make our regional offices smart offices. Congress has given money to make smart campuses, but Congress has not given money to make the offices of CHED equally smart. So we ask Congress to please give CHED the necessary support so that we can also undertake the mandates of Congress. And these are for the regional offices in particular, and also the central office of CHED. We'd also like to inform Congress that we have been able to get additional funding for the Tulong Dunong program, particularly for new scholars, which is of interest to many of our legislators because they respond to their constituents' needs for financial assistance. We were able to get an allocation of 3.2 billion for Tulong Dunong, and in our calculation, we have about 1.6 billion pesos available for new Tulong Dunong scholars. This is important because every year, Congress tries to realign funds for Tulong Dunong for new scholars. Once they become Tulong Dunong scholars, their funding continues now because of a provision in the GAA that says continuing tulong-dunong scholars will now be classified under the tertiary education subsidy. So this is the good news we would like to tell Congress. So this is our wish list. More money for RA 10931. We need money for the Philippines Qualifications Framework, also a law passed by Congress, which unfortunately we don't have any funding. Transnational Higher Education Law, also passed by Congress. Doktor para sa Bayan Law. The expansion of the CHED building, upgrading of our CHED regional offices into smart offices. And so those are some of our requests which were not included in the NEP. Okay. For our performance in budget utilization, for 2020, our budget utilization for the HEDF was 99.99%. We were able to use almost all of our HEDF. Our utilization for GAA is a little lower. It is 79.32%. And the difference that we have not yet obligated are remaining funds for financial assistance to students. Basically, tulong-dunong. We have requested the funds, but the DBM has not given the funds to us, so we cannot give it to the students. And these are for students that are enrolled in academic year 2020-2021. But because we have 3 more months to utilize the 2020 GAA, we assure Congress that just like in the previous years, at the end of December 2021, we will be able to fully utilize our 2020 General Appropriations Act. Our budget utilization for the 2021 budget is lower for several reasons. For the HEDF, it is only 11% because a lot of the HEDF projects are developmental projects or grants that we give to universities. Usually, these grants are vetted, they are reviewed, and they are approved, and they are usually utilized towards the end of the year. So just like in 2020, where our utilization rate was 99%, we assure Congress that the utilization rate for the HEDF will be very high because the projects have been evaluated, they have been selected. It is just a matter of giving the money to the universities. For the General Appropriations Act, our utilization is 19.58%. The biggest bulk of the remaining funds are funds for the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Law. We have not started vetting the tertiary education subsidy beneficiaries for the first semester of 2021-2022 because classes have only started or are starting. We have not reimbursed the tuition and miscellaneous fees of state universities because they have to claim that for the first semester of 2021-2022. And we have continued to ask money, or we have continued to ask for the release of FLRs. We have submitted our FLR requests to DBM as soon as, assuming they're approved and as soon as these funds are released, we will be able to obligate and utilize this money very fast. So at first glance, the budget utilization might be low, but if you see in the next slide, a whole list of for later release, for later release funds are pending with the DBM. So we have requested the SARO. We have not gotten the NCA. So as soon as we get the NCA, we will be able to use this money. So this is a list of all the FLRs and the request for SALO submitted to the DBM. Finally, as a final note, we'd like to assure Congress that CHED uses its funds very well. In 2020, the DBM lauded CHED for using its 2020 fiscal financial income performance. If I may quote, the DBM noted notably high accomplishment rates after monitoring and review of agency performance, particularly the utilization of government fund targets from January to December 2020. The report of DBM also said the accomplishments of CHED prove its flexibility and capacity to deliver beyond its commitments, which is much needed in this pandemic. End of quote. We assure Congress that this DBM assessment of CHED's performance in 2020 will be equaled by our performance in 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair Popoy, for that comprehensive presentation. And on that note, I would like to give my congratulations to you and to your family, CHED family, for the accomplishments that you have made, especially the second motion, the DBM's findings, no? Doon sa magandang performance ng Commission on Higher Education, particularly at this difficult time during the pandemic. That impacts a lot, no? Again, especially on our education. So before I call our first interpolator, I would like to recognize first Vice Chair Pingping Tejada for his short manifestation. Vice Chair Pingping Tejada.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And sir, before we start, Chairman Matugas, I would like to thank you for giving this opportunity. It's a rare occasion where a manifestation is first granted than the interpellators. Thank you very much because I'm so very happy and I think and I believe that everyone is happy about the present development in CHED's activities, particularly the implementation and support it has given to Republic Act 11509, Dr. Para sa Bayan, and congratulating them for the completion of the IRR of Dr. Para sa Bayan in a short time. Mr. Chair, and in the inclusion of the University of Southern Mindanao as one of the 5 approved medical schools in our country, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, this is the need of the time. This is time of pandemic and the creation of government state universities, schools of medicines is timely because it will be distributed in the entire country, especially in Central Mindanao, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Congratulations po sa ating CHED family and to Congress as well as very thankful to His Excellency President Duterte for the passage of the Doctors ng Bayan law. Thank you very much and thank you po.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Tejada, for your manifestation of support to the CHED family. Before moving on, I would like to recognize the physical presence of my colleague, Honorable Sara Ilago of the Kabataan Party List. We will now proceed with the first interpolator, and may I remind the interpolators of our 5-minute rule. It shall be observed strictly, and it applies only to the questions, excluding response of the resource persons. So I now call Honorable Franz Castro for her interpolation. Honorable Castro, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to commend the CHED, led by Chairman Popoy, for the very systematic presentation of their budget. Kasi nakita na natin doon, Mr. Chair, ano, yung performance, unutilized, yung tungkol doon sa COVID, ano yung mga ask pa nila sa mga FLR, sa DBM. Sana matulungan natin, ano, Mr. Chair. Kasi ilan kasi sa mga tatanungin kung mga pondo, nandoon na nga pala doon sa mga FLR nila. At saka yung sinabi na rin niya po yung mga gusto niyang maponduhan. And that is good para mas madali na sa atin, Mr. Chair. So, ang tatanungin ko na lang, Mr. Chair, yung flexible learning. So, last July, tama po ba? July 30 to July 31, 2021, you have started po yung flexible learning. And from that, meron po tayong 13,188 with 1,048 faculty with a limited face-to-face. At ngayong taon nga ito, Mr. Chair, pinagpapatuloy pa rin po ba ito yung sa medicine, mga medical courses na nagkakaroon po ng limited face-to-face? Mr. Chair?
Can I answer,
Chairman Popoy, you
Mr.
may
Chair?
respond.
Yeah. Thank you, Congresswoman Francis. The 118 universities that have been inspected and allowed to open are opening at different time periods. May mga nauna na, UP College of Medicine, Fatima, UST, UERM. They started in the first quarter of the year already, immediately upon approval. Yung iba, they've decided to open only this coming semester. So iba-iba ho yung starting point at iba-iba yung degree programs na pina-inspect nila. So tuloy-tuloy na ito hanggang itong coming school year. There are still applications that are still being evaluated by our regional offices. So maaari pong madagdagan yung 118 universities na papayagan. Ang regional office po kasama ang local IATF, local government, at saka yung DOH ang nag-i-inspect ng facilities sa region. So they are inspected and approved by the region. So tuloy-tuloy po ito sa papadating na school year sa medicine and allied health programs. Maliit po yung porsyento ng mga schools na napayagan na mag-limited face-to-face versus the total number of schools that have medical and allied health programs.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chairman Popoy. No? Doon po sa inyong mga binanggit. So talagang maliit nga po ito. Kasi maganda pong halawan po ng best practices or experience dahil sa ang basic ed, di ba? 1.5 year talagang totally closed. Baka mapaghalawan yan ng experience. At tatanong ko lang po, no, yung paano ba, so yung DOH po yung namahala dun sa inspection with their criteria na, no, kung ito po ay papasa na o hindi para sa limited face-to-face. Tama po ba? Can you cite some criteria po dun sa mga schools na pinayagan na?
Ang sa experience po namin sa limited face-to-face, critical na kasama yung local government. Hindi po pinapayagan yung mga eskwelahang magbukas kung hindi kasama ang local government sa pag-decide, because if students or faculty get infected, the tracing system and access to health facilities is under the local governments. So hindi po pwedeng national government lang ang nagde-decide, kasama yung local government. So ang ini-inspect ho namin, meron kaming 24-page joint CHED DOH guidelines na naka-enumerate lahat ng kanilang gagawin. Ang pinaka-minimum are minimum health standards, pero equally important is how they retrofit their facilities, putting directional signs, coming in, coming out, pathways, saang hagdan aakyat, saang hagdan bababa, yung pagkakadisenyo ng mga classroom para yung mga estudyante ay hindi nagsasalubungan, pati airflow, kung paano ang hangin, paano i-reduce yung access dito sa mga equipment na gagamitin sa laboratory. Lahat po yan ay ini-inspect kung para siguruhin sila ay ligtas. And then meron na pong best practices. pina-video po natin yung magagaling na eskwelahan at dinidistribute yan doon sa ibang eskwelahan through our regional offices. Yung regional office po ng CHED ay tuloy-tuloy ang Zoom kasama ng mga university para magtulungan yung mga universities turuan ng isa't isa kung paano magre-retrofit. Ang pinakamagaling ho dati na nakita namin ay yung Our Lady of Fatima University. Pero sa aking palagay, nung nagpunta ako sa Zamboanga, nung nakita ko yung Universidad de Zamboanga Dentistry Program, parang yun na yung pinakamagaling ngayon na nakita ko. So dinidistribute po natin yung video kung paano sila nag-retrofit dun sa mga iba. Kasi meron ho mga university na takot magbukas kasi akala nila magastos mag-retrofit. Hindi naman po masyadong magastos. Ang definition po ng retrofitting ay paano gagawing ligtas ang facilities para sa mga estudyante at saka mga faculty. So tuloy-tuloy po yung dinidisseminate. Kung gusto nyo po makita yung mga video, pwede po namin i-share yan dahil sinishare po sa mga pamantasan.
Ilan po yung estudyante per class, Chairman, Mr. Chair? Ilan po yung estudyante, for example?
Hindi ho estudyante per class ang tinitignan, yun hong disenyo ng classroom at saka kung paano ipoposisyon yung mga equipment, paano ipoposisyon yung mga facilities. Depende po do sa spacing in between students. Halimbawa po sa Universidad de Zamboanga, dentistry program ho, yung mga estudyante nagtatrabaho do sa parang robot na meron silang ngipin na doon ginagawa. Ang ginawa ho nila, merong space between the robots. Kahit magkakatabi ho yung kanilang space, meron pa rin space. Tapos nakalagay ho sa big screen yung ginagawa ng bata, nakikita ng faculty. So the faculty does not have to be in the room. The faculty can be in an adjacent room to monitor and tell the students how to do the dentures, how to fix the teeth, etc. Ang isa hong nakikita naming maganda ay yung paggamit ng teknolohiya para hindi manual or hindi face-to-face talaga. Doon sa Fatima ho, yung teacher ay nasa kabilang kwarto, merong glass partition, yung estudyante ay dinidirect niya doon sa kabila. Kaya safe na safe ho. Kaya naniniwala kami na dahil maganda ang pagkaka-retrofit, ang posibilidad na magkasakit ang mga bata ay mas mababa. So yun po ang antayan. Kung depende ho doon sa laboratory o sa klase ng kwarto, gaano kalaki. Ang importante yung spacing in between students, student and faculty, at saka yung directional signs. Dapat ho yung papasok ng mga estudyante, hindi siya doon lalabas. Dapat may mga arrow sa floor na yung daanan nila, sa kabila naman sila lalabas para hindi ho nagbabanggaan yung mga estudyante at faculty.
Okay. Thank you po sa explanation at dun sa inyong mga examples. Ang pangalawang concern ko, Mr. Chair, Chairman po, yung tungkol po doon sa yung ayuda. Kasi parang wala akong napansin po na parang ayuda po or COVID response po para sa 2022, no? Kasama po ba ito doon sa sinasabi niyong ask o yung mga hindi pa nai-release ng DBM? Paano po yung sa 2022 na budget? Meron pa po ba doon?
Ang binigay ho sa amin sa Bayanihan 2 ay yung ayuda para sa mga estudyante para mabawasan yung kanilang utang kung sila'y nasa private school. Yan ho ay na-disburse na namin lahat. Nag-propose kami sa Bayanihan 3. Sabi po namin, dahil efficient naman na aming disbursement, 60,000 students ang natulungan, nagastos yung 300 million, 2 buwan lang tapos namin, humingi kami ng 500 million sa Bayanihan 3. Nasama ho doon sa House version ng Bayanihan 3 yung aming hiningi, pero hindi ko po alam kung anong mangyayari sa Bayanihan 3. Kaya ho hindi namin pinasok sa NEP because we were hoping it will be incorporated in Bayanihan 3, Congresswoman. So wala po kami pinupost 2022 NEP na ayuda para sa mga estudyante.
So baka yan po yung pwede nating pagtulungan po, Mr. Chair, sa Kongreso na maipasok po yung ayuda natin dun sa ating mga estudyante pa.
Kung bibigyan po kami ng Kongreso ay agad-agad naming i-implement yan. Efficient naman po ang implementation namin ng Bayanihan 2 funds kung bibigyan po kami ng pondo.
Okay. Yung pangatlong topic ko po, Mr. Chair, kasi binawasan ng 20%, no? O 21%. Itong sinasabi yung ngayon ko lang po ito narinig na program, yung katulad ng ALS sa high school or sa basic ed, yung Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency Accreditation Program. Ano po ito? Para po ito doon sa mga undergrad? Nabasa ko po para sa mga nagtapos ng high school na hindi na overage. Parang ganun po ba ang nito? Ang concept po?
Para po ito sa mga estudyante na natigil ang pag-aaral sa kolehiyo, yung iba'y nagtrabaho, yung iba'y naubusan ng pang-tuition at tumigil sila sa trabaho. Ang sistema ay pupunta sila sa mga schools na HEDF provider at i-credit yung kanilang experience sa trabaho para mababawasan yung subjects na kailangan nilang kunin para matapos yung kanilang degree. Sa undergrad lang po ito. Ang ginawa namin ngayong taon na ito ay pinadami natin yung eskwelahan na pwede mag-provide ng ETIAP. Kasi medyo kaunti ho noon, hindi accessible sa madaming estudyante dahil may mga region na 1 o 2 school lang ang nagbibigay ng ETIAP. Ngayon po'y padadamihin natin yung number of schools at saka pwede na rin hong flexible learning, so hindi kailangang physically pumunta sa classroom. So kahit na medyo malayo yung estudyante na gustong makatapos ng kanyang degree, pwedeng yung iba ay dadalhin through flexible learning para sila'y makatapos. Gusto ho nating mapadami yung bilang ng graduates. Medyo nabababaan po kami sa bilang ng mga ETIAP graduates.
Okay. So tutulong po tayo, Mr. Chair, doon para madagdagan yung budget tungkol dyan. Last na po, Mr. Chair, at ito pong nung lagi ko pong inaanong issue, yung NBC 461 Cycle 8. May guidelines na po ba, Chairman Popoy, Mr. Chair?
Na-aproban na po ng CEB yung aming bagong sistema. Nagpa-public hearing na sa aking pagkakaalam. At kung makakapaglagay ng pondo sa ating GAA, pwede na pong magpatakbo ng next round of promotion. Ang ginawa ko natin sa bagong guidelines ay siniguro na yung mga problematic areas do sa previous guidelines ay wala na dyan. Ang ginagawa po ngayon ng Technical Working Group ay kumukuha ng example ng data galing sa dating promotion system at itong bago at titignan natin kung ano yung mas makakatulong sa mga faculty. Pero tapos na po yung guidelines diyan.
Can you provide this committee, Mr. Chair, nung guidelines and this representation?
Isasubmit po namin sa committee yung guide. Tumaan sa Commission and Bank.
Okay, thank you po, Mr. Chair. Yun lang po yung mga tatanong ko.
Maraming salamat, Honorable Franz Castro, for your interpolation. Our next interpolator is from the majority, our Deputy Speaker, Congressman Bernadette Herrera D.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po to the CHED family. Good afternoon po. Well, very quick questions lang po for me. Number one, meron po kayo nung locally funded projects sa 2021 for financial assistance for postgraduate students in 2021. Ano po ba ang breakdown nito as to beneficiaries, regions? Kasi medyo lump sum po siya. So how was it used? Kasi wala kayo nito noong 2020. So this is actually a new fund in 2021. Is that correct? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, yan po yung nilagay namin sa CCAP scholarship. Ito yung malaking scholarship para tulungan yung ating mga faculty members to finish their master's and PhD degrees. This has been opened. There are applicants already. This is an assistance that is also COVID-related because we are allowing faculty members who lost their jobs because of the pandemic to become full-time scholars. So as the economy improves and they want to go back to the education sector, then they will have better or more accomplished degrees by that time. Yan po yung ng pondo para sa financial assistance to postgraduate education.
So this is for faculty members lang po, Mr. Chair.
Sinama natin yung mga empleyado ng mga universities. Pwede po ang employees kasi there are employees who might be thinking that they can be faculty members later on. So we're giving them the opportunity to finish or to complete additional postgraduate degrees so that they can try to become faculty members also.
Mr. Chair, kamusta po ang availment? How much out of the 1.5 billion allocated, magkano na po ang nakapag-avail? Ilan na po ang nakapag-avail dito?
Ngayong school year lang po magsisimula ito, kaya ongoing application. So hindi pa namin alam kung magkano ang magagastos dahil medyo natagalan ho gawin yung guidelines kasi mahirap mag-design ng graduate studies scholarship dito sa Philippines. So the application has just been, is until the end of this month pala ang application.
I see. Siguro, Mr. Chair, pasubmit na lang po tayo ng general guidelines kasi medyo lump sum ito. So, hindi pa nagagamit yung 2021, tapos gagamitin pa lang for 2020. Ay, tapos may 1.5 ulit for 2022. But definitely, this is a laudable program. Bigyan na lang po tayo ng guidelines so that we could disseminate the information to the faculty members and members of the university. Mr. Chair, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, we will appreciate the help of Congress.
Yes.
Getting more of our faculty members and the higher education employees to go to this program. Siguro hingin din namin ng tulong ng Congress na baka pwedeng i-extend yung utilization ng 2020 to 2022. Kasi meron ho talagang mga projects na mabagal gumalaw, yung iba na FLR pa, kaya mabagal release na baka kailangang payagan ang mga executive agencies na gamitin yung 2021 GAA until next year. Yun po. Thank you po.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Syempre, that's very much noted. Especially sa CHED, dahil nga may school year pa tayong pinag-uusapan, so it's more difficult for you. So, sige po, we'll take that into consideration, Mr. Chair, and we'll bring it up. Total, minanifest din naman yan. So, Mr. Chair, let's put that on record na because CHED nga, palaging yan ang problema ng CHED and DepEd because of the school year, nahihirapan talaga to cope up with the dispensation of funds. Number two, Mr. Secretary, through you, Mr. Chair, yung budget for research and scholarship project contains 195 million. Ano po yung 195 million na po yun?
Yan po yung Pikari funds. This is a project started under the previous administration to provide for high-level research between Philippine universities and the University of California system.
Sorry, Mr. Secretary, yung capital outlay niya. May capital outlay siya na 195,880,000.
Kasi po doon sa high-level research, kailangan ng mga equipment, kailangan ng high scientific equipment na ginagamit, kaya meron ho siyang portion na capital outlay kasi yun pong mga universities na nagtutulungan, kailangan nila ng magandang equipment para sa kanilang mga activities. Yun po yung capital outlay portion yan para sa projects ng mga universities.
Okay, pasubmit na lang sa committee through you, Mr. Chair. And last question na lang po ako, Mr. Chair. Ang tanong ko lang po, kamusta po ba yung tulong-dunong project natin?
Ang magandang balita po, ngayong taon na ito, ay nakapaglagay kami ng new tulong-dunong funds. Kasi po alam namin na in previous years, ito ay realignment na ginagawa ng Kongreso every year. At saka every year, kailangang applyan ng tulong-dunong. Dalawa po ang ginawa natin under the Duterte administration. Unang-una, lahat ng tulong-dunong na continuing ay automatic covered na under free higher education. So, ito yung problema ng mga estudyante na baka sa susunod na taon hindi na sila makakakuha. Ang pangalawa ay nakapaglagay po tayo na additional funds sa NEP at ito'y pwedeng gamitin for new tulong-dunong para yung problema po last year na kulang ang pondo at walang new tulong-dunong grantees ay hindi po maulit ngayong taong ito.
So to you, Mr. Chair, nasa CHED na, hindi na yung DSWD.
Ganun po ang mangyayari dahil nilagay sa aming NEP, ang guidelines po ay yung dating guidelines ng tulong-dunong. Yun po ang mag-a-apply.
Okay. Well, better yun kung nasa CHED. Mas gusto po namin na nasa CHED po ang pondo dahil masyado na pong maraming pondo rin ang DSWD. So, mas mabuti na pong nasa inyo po. And yun lang, Mr. Chair, and I would like also to manifest talagang during the State of the Nation address when we were interviewing beneficiaries of CHED, talagang napakadami ang natulungan ng ating free education, and I'd like to thank CHED for efficiently handling it. Talagang tuwang-tuwa sila na kahit yung kanilang tuition fee, yung kanilang kagamitan, dahil walang klase, yung allowances sila, nakakabili sila ng laptop, at nakatapos talaga sila ng kanilang pag-aaral at tuloy-tuloy na pag-aaral. So I congratulate CHED for that one. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to our CHED Chair. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, DSBH. We take note of your manifestation and all your observation on the budget of CHED. And for our next interpolator, ang susunod po ay sa minority, no, ang ating Representative Honorable Sara Ilago ng Kabataan Party List.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon sa CHED family at sa Unifast. Mr. Chair, nakakahiya at sa totoo lang nakakaiyak po sa galit yung pinakita ng CHED sa budget presentation na para tayong wala sa gitna ng pandemya. Unang-una, walang budget para sa doktor, para sa bayan, para sa 2022. Isang bagay na binigyan ng prioridad na matapos ang lahat ng mga kinakailangan para maging ready na yan for implementation. Maski yung scholarship para sa med students na ngalahati para sa 2022. At dagdag pa dyan, yung subsidies para sa tuition fees ng mga med students sa 2020, hanggang ngayon pala hindi pa binibigay. May binigay po ba na update yung DBM hinggil dito sa subsidies na to sa tuition fees sa med students dahil ang laki po ng epekto niyan sa operations ng ating state medical schools. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ilago. Last year po, naglagay ng FLR para sa doktor para sa bayan si Senator Joel Villanueva dahil nung napasa yung doktor para sa bayan, tapos na yung GAA. So naglagay po ng 250 million para scholarship at 150 million pangtulong sa mga bagong medical programs. Yung 150 po ay napakaliit kasi pambili lang ng mga plasticized mannequins, yung kailangang mga anatomy table. Kulang po yun, kaya maliit lang ang aming maibibigay. Yung 250, konti lang pong scholar. Pero hindi pa po nare-release yung under 2021 GAA. FLR po yun, so hindi pa na-release. Meron po ho kaming 167 million na pangbayad do sa existing scholars under the medical scholarship ng CHED. FLR din po yun. Kaya hinihintay po namin na mabigay sa amin yung pondo para ma-implement. Pero tulad po ng sabi ninyo, sa susunod na taon po, walang pondo para tulungan yung medical schools. So paano po nila pagagandahin yung kanilang facilities kung walang pondo? Nag-propose po kami, hindi naman po sinama sa aming NEP. So mabuti po kung matutulungan kami ng Kongreso na bigyan ng pondo para sa doktor sa bayan dahil ito naman po ay batas galing sa Kongreso. Congressional action po ito at we fully support the doktor para sa bayan but we need to get funds to make it move.
Mr. Chair, ngayon higit kailan nakita natin kung gaano kahalaga yung sektor ng kalusugan at kinakailangan natin yung suporta sa medical at lahat ng allied health na professions, education program sa buong bansa para mapunan yung konti na konti, kulang na health resources, mga frontliners natin na siyang nangunguna talaga sa paglaban sa COVID-19 at pagtitiyak ng kalusugan ng bawat mamamayang Pilipino. Kaya po, Mr. Chair, at the proper time, we will move to fund these programs and increase funding for scholarships and other financial assistance programs. Now let me move to our next concern, Mr. Chair. Nasabi po kanina na walang ayuda na nakaugnay ng COVID-19 relief para sa mga estudyante, gayon din sa mga diversely affected workers in the higher education sectors. Hindi lang po yung mga nawala ng trabaho mula sa faculty, kundi ganun din yung mga education support personnel sa ating mga paaralan. Ano pong ginagawa ng CHED para maitulak ito sa Malacanang? Kasi kung sa part po ng House, nagpasa na ng 500 million para sana makadagdag dun sa diversely affected workers. Ngunit ang statement po ng Malacanang, hindi na sa Bayanihan 3, pero dito na sa 2022 budget dapat ilagay lahat ng ayuda na may kinalaman sa COVID-19 relief.
Nilagay po namin yan sa Bayanihan 3 dahil nung panahong yon, that was the expectation. That's why we did not put it in the NEP. Pero kung magbibigay po ang Kongreso ng pondo para dito, i-implement po namin. Pero hindi po kasama sa aming submission kasi doon na po namin nilagay sa Bayanihan 3 dahil we were hoping that that will pass faster actually. So hindi na kailangan tapusin at ma-approve yung GAA. Baka mas mabilis dumating yung pera, mas mabilis na ma-implement. So it was a decision of the Commission to put it in Bayanihan 3, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, ang representasyon po na ito, nakasama pa ng mga ilang kasamahan natin dito sa Kongreso ay sumusuporta dun sa panawagan ng student aid. Gayon din yung education emergency relief program na magbibigay po ng ayuda hindi lang sa mga faculty, sa mga kawani, gayon din mismo sa mga schools, institutional subsidy para sa mga maliliit na mga private schools. Nakita po natin dun sa report ng CHED na may 26 na schools na nawala po dun sa bilang ng mga HEIs. Ano pong nangyari dito? Na-merge ba sila sa ibang schools o nagsara po ba? Ano po ang nangyari dito sa 26 schools na nabawas dun sa total number ng HEIs?
Pakiulit ho yung tanong, hindi ko masyadong nakuha.
Mr. Chair, sa pinakahuli na HEI report po ng CHED, yung stats niyo po na nilalabas, sa bilang ng mga higher education institutions, lumiit po ng 26 yung bilang ng mga HEIs ngayong taon. Ano po ang dahilan nito?
Meron hong mga maliliit na private universities na nag-decide na hindi muna sila magbubukas ng programa. Sa iba-ibang region po ito, most of the small private schools that were affected are those that are tuition dependent with enrollment of up to about 1,500 students. Because if you're tuition dependent and your enrollment goes down, you don't have enough money to run the operations of the school. So they informed our regional offices that they will not open for the school year. Ang marami po ay maliliit na mga eskwelahan in different regions. Meron ding medyo kalakihan dito sa isa sa Metro Manila, isa sa Bulacan, but most are small private schools that have been affected. Yeah, pero kwan naman po sa kanila, temporary closure yon. Ang ginawa ng CHED, we are relaxing the rules so that when they reopen, they don't have to reapply for all the programs and faculty. Kasi under normal circumstances, if you stop operation and you want to open again, you'll have to get all your programs evaluated again by CHED for the faculty, for the facilities. To help the schools, we relax that requirement. So pag magbubukas ulit sila, tutulungan namin sila makapagbukas kung kaya na nila. Yun po ang tulong na ginawa namin sa mga naapektuhang private universities.
Mr. Chair, mahingi po tayo ng ulat ng CHED hinggil dito sa mga universities na ito at kung ano pa yung mga particular na mga subsidies na magiging helpful para sila po ay makapagbukas muli tapos makapag-accommodate ng mga estudyante. Ngayon, nabanggit kanina ng CHED Chair, Mr. Chair, yung tungkol sa pangangailangan din ng mga schools para sa retrofitting ng kanilang mga facilities, yung mga upgrade na kinakailangan for them to implement prevention and mitigation strategies to combat COVID-19 and ensure the health of all stakeholders. Meron po bang pondo sa proposal ng CHED para may tulong na directed sa ganong purpose?
Doon ho sa Bayanihan 2, we were given 3 billion for smart campuses. What we told Congress at that time is that what we can commit is only to lay the foundations for smart campuses because the money will not be enough. So we developed competitive grants that the state universities and colleges applied for. So 89 state universities and colleges got grants for a maximum of 25 million per university to lay fiber optics, purchase stronger bandwidth, improve their learning management system, establish internet rooms, etc. So our concept is that when the students slowly go back at the appropriate time, they will go back to campuses that are more IT enabled than the universities they left in March 2020. So ang babalikan po nilang mga university ay mas malakas ng signal, meron ng mga facilities para sa flexible learning. Ang problema po, that is only the foundations of a smart university. Sana ho merong Smart University Part 2 na pondo dahil alam na ho ng mga university kung ano yung susunod na kanilang mga gagawin. Dahil vinet po namin lahat ng proposal nila. Although 89 lang yung napondohan, pero ang natanggap naming proposal ay mga 300 proposals. 89 lang ang kain ng pera. Kung bibigyan po kami ng Kongreso ng another Smart Campus Fund, we promise that it can be utilized very fast because the schools already know what they need. Pero wala po yan dun sa budget po next year. Wala pong Smart Campus Part 2. Sana nga sa Bayanihan 3. Ang isa pa po, in Bayanihan 2, we lobbied that the Smart Campus Initiative should also be extended to private universities. Hindi lang naman po state universities ang colleges ang kailangang magpaganda ng facilities. Pero hindi ho sila nasama doon sa paggamit ng pondo sa Bayanihan 2. So kung gusto po ng Kongreso na tulungan ng ating universities, tulungan din po natin ang ating private universities at saka ipagpatuloy yung pag-develop ng mga universities into smart campuses.
Mr. Chair.
Honorable Lago, I would like to remind that you only have 30 seconds remaining in your time. Good for one more question.
Ibig sabihin, Mr. Chair, walang pondo para sa pagtulong sa mga eskwelahan para sa retrofitting, pagpapatuloy ng Smart Campus Fund, gayon din po yung pagtulong sa kanila para muling mabuksan yung ating mga campuses at ligtas na pagbabalik eskwela para po sa 2022. Ngayon po, ilan doon sa mga HEIs natin ang nasa low risk areas o kahit yung mga nasa GCQ o MGCQ areas na supposedly po ay eligible na mabigyan o mag-apply ng authority para mag-conduct ng limited face-to-face classes. Yan kasi yung original na proposal ng CHED, Mr. Chair. Hindi yan nakabatay sa programa, pero nakabatay dun sa dapat naman na risk-based assessment dun sa ating mga areas. At na-acknowledge nila yun sa DOH CHED Joint Memorandum Circular number 1 Series of 2021 na yung mga schools na nasa GCQ at MGCQ areas, pwede na mag-apply no, para sa limited face-to-face classes. Ano po bang dahilan no, kung bakit hindi ito mapatupad?
Napapatupad na po. Inuna lang natin yung medicine and allied health sciences because the thinking of CHED is that we first prioritize the degree programs that need hands-on experience. Inuna po muna natin yung mga programa na kailangan talaga. At yan inapruban na ng Pangulo noong January. Yung next batch, ang sabi po natin, titignan muna natin yung implementation ng first batch. At kung ligtas ang mga bata at faculty sa first batch, i-expand natin do sa second batch ng degree programs na kailangan ng hands-on. At lumabas naman po sa data na yung first batch, very minimal ang infection. 0.3%, less than 1% sa students, 1.4% sa faculty. Wala naman pong sa awa ng Diyos, walang namatay, walang na-ospital. Kaya nag-submit na ako sa IATF ng second batch. Yan po ay hinihintay na lang ang approval ng Pangulo. Yung susunod na batch, nililista na ho natin yung mga kurso. Kasi po, dadalhin lang namin sa IATF yung degree program kung meron ng approved na flexible curriculum tsaka syllabus. So yun hong mga technical panel, yung mga deans ng eskwelahan, pinag-aaralan nila yung curriculum, anong mga subject ang pwedeng gawing face-to-face, ano yung pwedeng virtual, at mag-a-approve ho ng dokumento para pag inapprovean man ng Pangulo, madaling implement. Mahirap ho kasi na approvean lang natin yung isang degree program na walang dokumento to implement it kasi baka hindi pantay-pantay ang pag-implement across the country. Baka ho yung kaligtasan ng mga bata. At yun ding matututunan nila, yung learning outcomes ay maapektuhan. So ang inuuna ho natin, yung mga degree programs na masipag silang gumawa ng flexible curriculum at flexible syllabus para pag in-approve, automatic pwede nang bitawan yung guidelines kung paano nila i-implement ang limited face-to-face. Yun po ang patakaran na ginagamit natin. So, yung engineering, kailangan po talaga niya ng face-to-face kasi napakaraming laboratory courses. Baka ho mag-iba yung mga buildings natin kung hindi gagamit ng teknolohiya. Ganon din yung maritime programs tsaka HRM. Yung susunod ho na tina-target natin ay veterinary medicine, industrial technology. May nakalista na po ng mga susunod. Pag na-approve ito at makita nating ligtas, isusunod-sunod ho natin yung mga degree programs.
Honorable Ilago, your time is up, but we will give you a 1-minute time for your manifestation.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ibig sabihin po pala, naniniwala naman yung CHED na dapat ng ligtas no, na muling magbukas no, yung mga eskwela at malinaw na yung bola nandun na sa Pangulo. No, kaya dapat po manawagan no, sa IATF, no, sa Malacanang ng ligtas, gradual at voluntaryo na pagbabalik eskwela. Yan po ang pangunahin na panawagan ngayon ng mga kabataan, ng mga scholar ng bayan, ang ligtas na balik eskwela. At hawak po natin ngayon no, yung petisyon ng mga estudyante para sa student aid, education relief programs, gayon din po ang ligtas na balik eskwela na mangailangan po ng pondo no, para sa 2020 para maihanda ang mga eskwelahan at ligtas na makabalik sa on-campus at in-person na learning ang mga estudyante. Pangalawa, Mr. Chair, sinusuportahan po ng representasyon na ito ang panawagan ng mga PLE takers na hindi lang dapat sa NCR, no, i-postpone muna ang PLE, no, kundi po sa buong bansa. Ibibigay ko po ngayon ito sa CHED, no, para sa kanilang aksyon at nararapat po na suportahan lamang dahil ngayon, no, kung sinuportahan ito ng CHED noong April 2020, winelcome po nila no, yung announcement, yung desisyon ng PRC na kanselahin lahat ng licensure exams. Bakit po hindi ngayon, no? Kung kailan natala natin yung pagkataas-taas na bagong bilang ng COVID-19. Huwag po sana natin itaya ang kalusugan at ang kapakanan, hindi lang ng PLE takers, no, kundi po lahat ng mga kawani na magsasagawa nito. Yun lamang, Mr. Chair, maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Honorable Ilago, and we take note of your manifestation and all your questions and concerns sa CHED budget. No, personally, I also support kailangan itong budget para sa doktor sa bayan, especially at this time of pandemic. And now to proceed, we'll recognize the next interpellator from the majority, Congressman Hector Sanchez. Kong Hector Sanchez, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Do you hear me, Mr.
Kong
Chairman?
Hector Sanchez, you're recognized. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and to our honorable colleagues.
Sige.
Again, good afternoon. First, I would like to congratulate and commend Chairman Popoy de Vera for his a very good presentation and, of course, excellent performance. And also, Mr. Chairman, I would like to manifest my strong support to the proposed budget for 2022. And even his request to carry over the budget for 2021 so that the whole CHED can survive on this pandemic, Mr. Chairman. So my first question to CHED, it is observed that the higher education development funds, CHED's capital, remain unutilized since calendar year 2005. For the past 15 years, having idle funds amounting to 254.1 million, which does not achieve the fund's objective to strengthen the quality of higher education in the country. Are there any plans to use these funds productively? That's my question, Mr. Chairman.
Ang sagot po ng CHED dyan ay doon ho sa CHED law, nakalagay na yung Higher Education Development Fund ay dapat CHED ang nagpapatakbo. Pero nung inimplement po yung batas, hindi po kami ang may hawak ng pondo. Yan po ay pondong hawak ng DBM. Kaya ang ginagawa po namin taon-taon ay nag-a-apply kami ng pondo galing sa HEDF. So dalawa yung pinanggagalingan ng budget ng CHED, yung General Appropriations Act, at kasama dito ay yung HEDF. Naipon over time yung pondo ng HEDF at malaki-laki na ho siya. Ang problema po, kung yung pondo niya ay nasa amin, mabilis po namin gamitin, pero kami po ay magsasubmit ng proposal sa DBM bawat taon. At hindi ho lahat ng hinihingi namin ay binibigay. So ang utilization namin, umaabot ng hanggang 1 bilyon kada isang taon, pinakamarami na yon. Umabot yata kami ng 1.2 billion. Ang mababa po ay mga 600 to 800 million sa ilalim po ng Duterte administration. Hindi ko po masasagot yung paggamit ng HEDF sa nakaraang administrasyon dahil hindi po ako ang chairman noon. Hindi ko po alam. But Congress has already called our attention that the use of the HEDF is not consistent with the new CHESA law that requires that the priority projects to be funded out of HEDF must be tourism-related. Nung dinala po yan ng Kongreso sa isang hearing sa akin, binago po natin ang paggamit ng HEDF. We are now using most of the HEDF for tourism-related projects. We're helping our schools that have HRM programs improve their facilities and their equipment. We have a very aggressive local tourism project that we're doing with universities and local government. So ginagamit naman po namin nung isang taon lagpas 1 bilyon ang aming allocation galing sa HEDF. Ngayong taon 1 billion din ang request. Ang binigay originally mas maliit. Ngayong taon a little over 1 billion po ng aming budget ay galing sa HEDF. Yun po ang aming, so hindi naman po totoong hindi namin nagagamit. Hindi pa po namin nauubos. Pero ginagamit naman po namin.
My second question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, kung proceed, you may proceed, Kung Hector Sanchez, with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My second question, the student loan program for tertiary education was unable to utilize its 1 billion pesos fund since calendar year 2018, based on the fact that the MOA with DBP has no provision on loan, repayment facilities, and mechanism that is required by UNIFAS board. This defective MOA effectively denies qualified students to avail the loan program. May I know if steps have been taken to rectify the MOA to enable students to make advantage of the program this academic year, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, ang naunang problema po ay kokonti talaga ang nag-a-apply. When we were conceptualizing it in the UNIFAST board, actually there was an expectation that the utilization in terms of application will be low because the number one reason on why students take loans from the studies done on the student financial assistance programs of universities, ang number one na dahilan kung ba't sila umuutang ay pambayad ng tuition. Sa UP po, nung ako'y Vice President, pinag-aralan naming masinsinan yung loan program ng UP. Ang number one reason, pambayad ng tuition. Nung naging libre po ang tuition at miscellaneous sa madaming state universities, nawala po yung number one reason na uutang, at least in public universities, which is about 50% of all tertiary level students. So ang natatarget po na uutang sa student loan program ay yung mga nasa private university. So unang-una, mas konti na po talaga yung potential na uutang. At ako po I am equally as frustrated as you. We want more students to apply. Yun hong mechanics ng MOA, inutusan na ho ng UNIFAST board, ang executive director ng UNIFAST, to sit down with DBP to find ways on how to tweak the program. Ang problema hong nakikita namin ay yung collection issue. Kasi ang naging problema ho natin sa student loan program, lalo na yung study now, pay later. Yung study now, pay later, naging study now, pay never po. Ang pagbayad sa study now, pay later sa nakaraang mga administrasyon is less than 10%. Hindi po nagbabayad yung mga umuutang at hindi po sila mahabol ng gobyerno sa kanilang utang. Kaya ang sinimulan natin sa UNIFAST ay short-term muna. Wala pa po tayong long-term study now, pay later because we have not designed a program that will not repeat the mistakes in the previous study now, pay later program. So short-term po, baka kaya din umuunti yung uutang kasi short term, payable ito within the no? Kung magbabayad ka within the school year, walang interest itong utang na ito. Pero pinag-aaralan po namin kung paano pagagandahin itong programang ito, and we are looking at our experts in student financial assistance to look into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My last question, Mr. Chairman. My province, Chairman Pupoy, were devastated by 3 strong typhoon last year. And we have this Catanduanes State University, Chairman, that up to now is talagang sayang lang yung infra natin doon na hindi even matakpan lang sana ng bubong. But I think Katsu has no funds for this. May I know, Chairman Pupoy, the status of the rehabilitation of these damaged structures? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hindi po kami pinapayagan ng DBM na magbigay ng capital outlay sa mga state universities. Dahil po yung capital outlay ni state universities, nilalagay po yan sa kanilang budget pag sinabmit sa Regional Development Council, paakyat sa DBM main. Doon ho sa mga state universities na inuupuan ko, ini-endorse naman po namin kung may capital outlay request yung mga state universities. Pero hindi ho kami allowed ng DBM nang magbigay ng capital outlay ko. Gustong-gusto po namin tumulong, pero hindi ho kami pinapayagang magbigay ng pondo para infrastructure sa mga state universities and colleges.
Chairman Pupoy, follow-up lang. Kung hindi pinapayagan, Chairman, is DPWH is allowed to have these funds for this university?
Yan po ang nangyayari. Yun pong mga legislators na nasa distrito nila yung mga state university, humihingi sila ng tulong ng DPWH para mabigyan ng mga project ng DPWH for capital outlay. Ganyan po ang ginagawa sa ibang state university. Yung iba naman po, galing sa kanilang income, ina-allocate ng Board of Regents yung pondo para sa infrastructure. Pwede po yan doon sa income ng state university. At yan naman po ay usually sinusuportahan ng Regional Development Council. Wala naman po mga RDC na talagang ayaw tulungan ng mga SUC. Pero doon po nang gagaling usually yung pondo. Minsan, pagka malakas yung bagyo tulad ng Haiyan, naglagay ang Kongreso ng budget for Haiyan rehabilitation. At dito po, may mga binigay na capital outlay para sa mga universities na tinamaan ng Haiyan noon. Ang marami doon sa SUC sa Region 8, na rebuild yung kanilang mga buildings using the Haiyan Fund or the Yolanda Fund. But that was an action of Congress to put a separate allocation for affected areas by Yolanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Popoy Rivera. We really admire you. Napakagaling po nyo. At sana po, Mr. Chairman, again, as I have mentioned, that I am supporting the proposed budget of CHED and even to carry over the 2021 budget. Thank you so much, Chairman.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Hector Sanchez, for your interpellation. We take note of all your concerns. Before we call the next interpellator, may quick question lang ako, Chair Popoy, no? Ano po ba ang posisyon o response ng CHED sa call ng PLA takers as supported by the Association of Philippine Medical Colleges Student Network and the Philippine Medical Student Association to postpone the September PLA nationwide?
Ngayon ko lang po nakuha itong manifesto, sa totoo lang. Hindi ko pa po na pag-aralan ito, pero ang general policy po ng komisyon under flexible learning policy is we have really to be flexible, not just in the curriculum, but in the mind of administrators who run programs. Ibig sabihin, if we can be more considerate about the students, considerate about the faculty, as much as possible sa panahon ng pandemya, kailangan magtulong-tulungan. So anything that would alleviate the plight of students, the faculty, the employees, as a general policy, we support in the commission. Dahil alam po natin ang problema on the ground. I have been going around. I have been interviewing faculty members, administrators. Marami ho tayong problema sa higher ed at kailangang suportahan natin ang mga estudyante, ang mga faculty at mga empleyado.
Maraming salamat, Chairman Popoy, for your answer. So now we will call on the next interpolator from the minority, Congressman Sherry Ann Tan. Honorable Tan, you have the floor. Honorable Tan, are you ready? Baka naka-mute ka. Please unmute.
Ako na ba? Yes.
7168, ha?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, Honorable Tan.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I would like to request that we have a collaboration, the province of Samar, together with the State University, Samar State University, have a convergence project of smarter SSU Basay Community College with the following diploma and certificate courses, such as the Banig Fashion and Apparel Technology, Banig Weaving Technology, the Root Crops Processing Technology, together with the Food Technology, and then the Business Management and tourism with specialization in tour guiding. So this is in line with the Spark Samar development agenda of the province. We would like to know if this program will be assured of the fundings from CHED. And second, Samar Island, the State University also push for the Samar Island Institute of Medicine that was endorsed by the RDC already to address the shortage of medical doctors in Region 8. And here in the province of Samar, malaki po kasi yung coverage ng Samar Island na kung saan maliit lang po yung mga nakakapunta ng mga doctors dito sa amin since medyo malayo po kami. Kung po pwede po sana ma-request natin sa CHED na mabigyan po ng karapatang pondo yung program, courses na to. This is intended for 2022 budget po.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unahin ko muna yung sa medical program kasi mas madaling sagutin. No? Doon ho sa medical program, yun hong mga universities, the universities that intend to have a medical program, are vetted by the CHED Technical Panel on Medicine for compliance with the CHED requirements. And then they inspect, they look at the faculty, and then they report to the Commission and Bank whether we will approve the start of a program. The usual problems that universities have had in the past by experience are the following. No? Many universities find it difficult to have a medical program because they don't have a very good training hospital to send their students. So kung wala po kasing training hospital, hindi ho natin pwedeng payagan na magkaroon ng medical program because we will not be producing good doctors. Another problem is recruitment of good faculty, especially the Dean of the College of Medicine, nagkakaproblema ho yung ibang university dyan. At syempre, yung ikatlo, yung facilities na kailangan. Kasi kailangan ng mga laboratory, kailangan ng mga facilities para ma-develop yung program. So, what we usually recommend to universities that want to have a medical program is first to benchmark with the good state universities that have already very good medical programs, like West Visayas State University in Iloilo, UP College of Medicine, because by benchmarking, they will already know how to go about developing a good curriculum, how to recruit good faculty, how to set up their laboratories, how to deal with training hospitals. Ang marami ho kasing mga university, they try to do it on their own. Matagal po pagka ganon. Matagal to do it on your own kung pwede namang tulungan ka ng mga magagaling ng medical programs. I used to chair the Samar State University, so Kong, I'm very familiar with your area and how good Samar State University is. So that is my advice for the universities that want to develop a medical program. I have instructed the president of West Visayas State University, President Villaruz, who is also the chair of the CHED Technical Panel on Medicine, and Dean Charlotte Chong of the UP College of Medicine, to help state universities that want to develop medical programs. Para upuan nila at saka mag-benchmarking sila. Yan po ang ginawa ng Cebu Normal University, University of Southeastern Philippines at saka Western Mindanao State University. So medyo na shortcut nila yung proseso, kaya yung degree program, yung medical program ho nila na-approve na ng CHED. Kasi nag-benchmarking exercise sila, nagpaturo sila, humingi sila ng tulong. So yun po ang advice ko doon sa medical program. Hindi po kasi madaling magtayo ng medical program kahit gusto natin, because we don't want to produce graduates who will not become good doctors. The good news, Mr. Chair, is that the performance of state universities who have medical programs is very good in this country. In fact, Mariano Marcos State University, who graduated their first batch of medical students, had 100% passing average in the licensure. Of course, you know that UP Manila always has 100. Yung West Visayas State University, nagtatap notch yung mga graduate niyan. Kaya ang gusto po natin na marka ng mga state universities na may medical program is that they produce very good graduates. Bicol University also had very good performance in the licensure. Mas mataas po ang passing rate ng mga state universities kaysa private schools on medical education. We want to keep it that way. So yun po yung aking sagot do sa medical program. We will evaluate the program as soon as they apply. But before that, we urge state universities to benchmark with other state universities. Yun po ang program. Yung isang tanong tungkol doon sa mga magagandang bagong programa ng Samar State University, meron hong possibility yan to get CHED funding. I-apply nyo ho doon sa mga grants na binibigay ng CHED. Baka makapasa, matutulungan namin financially by giving them grants. Pero yung pagtayo ho ng mga program mismo, yan po ay decision ng Board of Regents ng Samar State University. Nasa sa kanila po kung sa palagay nila kailangan yung mga programang yan. At kung yung mga degree programs na yan ay talagang kailangan, dadaan ho yan sa evaluation ng CHED Regional Office. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, pertaining po, I'm grateful that CHED, the head of the CHED is really familiar with the Samar State University. Now, I would like to express this, that we have a training hospital already in Catbalogan City. It's the Samar Provincial Hospital, where we already have 100% no balance billing, meaning pag no balance billing ho tayo sa hospital, somehow the hospital really delivered the right service for the patients. And based on the PhilHealth income also, we reached the 1 million per bed per annum already. So malaki na ho yung improvement natin sa hospital. So if we will be talking about the training hospital, we already have it, including the district hospital in Calbayog City. It's already ready. And for facilities, yun lang po yung gusto ho namin na sana matulungan kasi I believe there are other state universities also in the region, in Region 8, who also aspire to have that medical parang nagsuserve sila or nagki-cater sila ng medicine, College of Medicine. So it would be favorable. I'm appealing to CHED because it's really favorable for the Samareños if we can have it here in the province of Samar, because it will not only cater the province of Samar but also northern and eastern Samar. Kasi ang hirap po naming makakumbinse ng mga doctors na pupunta ho dito sa amin, and because of the universal healthcare law na meron na ho tayo, yung UHC, yun lang po yung paraan na nakikita namin for sustainability pertaining sa UHC. So sana ho mabigyan ho kami ng attention at saka maalalayan ho ang State University, ang Samar State University ng CHED for this particular program doon sa State University, sa Samar State University. We're expecting ho sana, sir, na ma-consider ho talaga kami. And we are very much willing to have a benchmark to other state universities who already have this kind of program. Maraming salamat po.
Mr. Chair, if I'm allowed to add to that.
Yes,
no?
Chair Popoy.
Ang nakalagay ho para sa doktor, para sa Bayan Law, ay tutulungan ng CHED yung mga viable state universities, at least one per region. Sa Region 8 ho, wala kahit na isang state university na may medical program. So malaki ang possibility na mag-push yung mga state universities doon na magkaroon ng medical program. Wala pa po. Ang nandoon lang po yung UP School of Health Sciences, pero iba ho kasi yung disenyo ng medical program ng UPSHS. Hindi ho siya parang regular program. Pero doon ho sa Samar State U, ang nakikita kong problema dyan, kung tama yung aking impormasyon, ay level 2 lang yung kanilang ospital. Ang kailangan ho para sa medical program ay level 3 hospital. So mahigpit po tayo sa guidelines na yan kasi yan ay guidelines hindi lamang ng CHED, yan ay in consultation with DOH also on the level of hospital where students will be trained. So baka yun ho ang pwedeng tulungan ng ating congresswoman na ma-upgrade yung ospital para kung level 3 siya ay mas madaling ma-approve yung medical program. Thank you po.
Yes, Mr.
May I
Chair.
remind Congresswoman Tan that you only have 30 seconds, good for one more question.
Okay po. Yes, Mr. Chair. We already prepared our hospital for level 3. Lahat po ng requirements na kinakailangan ho ng hospital for level 3, inaayos na ho natin. So we would like to appeal the CHED to consider, kasi alam ko merong state university from Leyte side who is also interested to have the medicine College of Medicine to be implemented in their state university. I hope they will consider Samar para naman ho mabalanse naman ho na marami rin hong mag-graduate dito sa amin, and it will be accessible yung mga doctors to apply in our respective district hospitals and the provincial hospital. So maraming salamat ho, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Madam Congresswoman, nakalagay ho sa batas at least one state university in the region. So pwede pong nagpas isa. So kahit nag-a-apply sa Leyte, hindi ho ibig sabihin na hindi na pwede mag-apply yung galing ng Samar. At least one po in one region. That is what the law provides. Hindi only one per region. At least one in every region. So pwede pong mag-apply yung mga ibang lugar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chair
thank you
Popoy.
po.
Thank you, Congressman Tan, for your interpolation. The next interpolator that we will recognize is from the majority, our chairman of the Committee on Higher Education, Congressman Mark Go. Congressman Mark Go, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Magandang hapon po sa lahat ng nandito sa ating pagpupulong at sa ating pong kasama sa Commission on Higher Education headed by Chairman Popoy de Vera. Chairman Popoy, Mr. Chair, you have recommended a higher budget for CHED in 2022. And what was approved by DBM is only 52 billion pesos, short of about 10 billion from the amount that you have recommended for CHED in 2022. I would like to find out, Mr. Chair, Chairman Popoy, what will be affected here if and when we will just keep your budget of 52 billion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair.
the first that will be affected are the newly passed laws of Congress that don't have appropriation, like Dr. Parasabayan, Transnational Education, Philippines Qualifications Framework. So hindi po namin magagawa yung hinahanap ng Kongreso ang mga susunod na mangyayari kung wala pong pondo. Yun yung unang tatamaan. Nag-request po kami ng 1 billion para sa Dr. Parasabayan to help the universities. Wala akong pinigay. Nag-request kami 500 million para sa scholarship ng mga Dr. Parasabayan students. 250 lang ang binigay. So mas konti po yung mapopondo ang estudyante. At yun yung mga bagong tayo na mga medical program baka hindi as fully equipped and capable as we expect them. Ganon din yung Transnational Education Law. Wala pong pondo. Yun ang immediate po na natatamaan. Ikalawa, yung sinimulan na ho natin yung scholarship para sa mga graduate school, kung hindi po tuloy-tuloy yan, baka ho wala tayong pang-sustain ng scholarship. Pero doon ho sa iba ay mga capital outlay na hinihingi namin. Halimbawa, para sa ating regional offices ng CHED, nakita nyo naman po, Congressman Go, yung lagay ng regional office ng CHED sa car, hindi po smart ang ating regional offices. Gusto natin mag-smart yung ating universities. Pero yun hong nagko-coordinate ng action sa higher education, hindi po smart yung aming facilities. Sana ho mabigyan kami ng pondo dyan. Yung iba po ay yung mga nabanggit kanina sa earlier discussion, wala hong Smart Campus Phase 2. We gave grants to universities to set the start of smart campuses. Wala hong follow through. So we cannot make our universities become full-fledged smart universities. We only lay the foundation. Those are the ones that are really affected by the things we are asking. At sana rin, na-approve na ho ng plano para do sa extension ng building ng CHED sa central office. Wala ho kaming pondo para pampatayo ng building, kaunting-kaunti. Kami ho'y nagsisiksikan na sa building. We want to expand our services. Yung Unifast po na nagpapatakbo ng napakalaking programa, wala hong sariling opisina, nagre-renta lang. Baka ho naman pwedeng bigyan kami ng pondo para mapatayo namin ng mas magandang building para yun naman pong mga tauhan na nagpapatakbo ng free higher education ay mabigyan naman ng maganda-gandang opisina. Thank you po.
Mr. Chair, as chairman of the Committee on Higher and Technical Education, I would like to state at the outset that I fully support the Commission on Higher Education to bring back the original proposed budget of 62 billion. The bills that we have passed into laws, including particularly the Doctor para sa Bayan or under Republic Act 11509, yung Transnational Higher Education Program, napaka-importante po nito. Plus yung making our universities smart universities. Kailangan po ng pondo yan. Marami po ngayong mga estudyante o mga gustong magmedisina at iniintay po nila itong doktor para sa bayan. As a matter of fact, halos tapos na po yung implementing rules and regulations, i-release nila. Kaya kailangan talagang suportahan natin ang Commission on Higher Education to bring back the original proposal of 62 billion pesos for the Commission on Higher Education, Mr. Chair. So having said that, that is what we're gonna do when we go into the plenary discussion of the budget of the Commission on Higher Education, and hopefully we can get a portion of the increase of 500 billion of our total budget for 2022. So, Mr. Chair, second, I just would like to manifest and express my appreciation to Chairman Popoy and the commissioners of CHED for doing an outstanding job in implementing so many programs and laws that we have passed in Congress. And I know that if we will provide this budget as requested by them, they will be able to continuously improve further the Commission on Higher Education in the delivery of accessible and quality education to our young people here in this country. So again, yun lang ang ating manifestation, Mr. Chair. I will not pursue any more other questions. Except of course, ito bang mga SUC's budgets natin, shall we separately discuss this or sa plenary na ito? Mukhang wala sa schedule ng ating Committee on Appropriation itong deliberation sa mga budgets ng mga state universities and colleges.
Chair Mark, yung budget ng SUCs, we will discuss it in the plenary, during the plenary
yes.
hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chair, because I receive a lot of messages from our friends in the different state universities and colleges reiterating the need for support from our end here in Congress so that the funds that they require to operate their SUCs will push through, Mr. Chair. So again, yun lang. Thank you very much, Commissioner Popoy or Senator Popoy. Maraming po salamat at magandang hapon sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Chair Mark. Now, I second the motion, your manifestation for CHED. And now we proceed to the next interpolator. May I call and recognize Congressman Ron Salo. Congressman Ron, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Chair, good afternoon. Allow me, Mr. Chair, to commend CHED with Chair Popoy at its helm for its efforts in ensuring that more of our students are able to access and receive higher quality education, and more universities, colleges, and higher education institutions achieve international recognition. Mr. Chair, I'll be honest, I initially intended to inquire matters relating to the implementation of RA 11448, or the Transnational Higher Education Act, which this representation has valiantly authored at sometime 2000 in the 17th Congress, and which we passed in 2019, and yet, Mr. Chair, remains unfunded as of the moment. This is the reason why, instead of inquiring, because I already received heard the explanations of Chair Popoy, I'm just making a manifestation, Mr. Chair. Thus, I'm respectfully making a manifestation for the funding of this law, which is designed to hasten the internationalization of Philippine higher education institutions in order to make Philippine higher education globally competitive and to improve the country's human resource base. Certainly, Mr. Chair, this particular law needs funding. Sayang ang opportunity para mapangat po ang kalidad ng ating higher education sapagkat mayroon na nga tayong batas na pinaghirapan po natin ay ipasa sa Kongreso po ito, subalit hanggang ngayon ay hindi pa po napupuntuhan. Kaya nagmamanifest po ako, Mr. Chair, na gawin po natin ang kakaya po natin, tulungan po natin para mapontuhan po ito, kasama pa po ng mga iba pang mga batas na hanggang ngayon po, yung mga binanggit po ni Chair po kanina, ay hindi pa po nabibigyan ng pondo hanggang ngayon o hindi nabibigyan ng sapat na pondo. Thus, Mr. Chair, I respectfully manifesting and appealing to this particular committee to provide the appropriate funding that the CHED requires or needs in order for them to be able to deliver their mandate as well as to ensure that we achieve better quality of education in the higher education. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And once again, my commendation to Chair Popoy and all the members or commissioners of the Commission on Higher Education, including Commissioner Ronald Adamat, in which I've been sitting as a member of the PUP Board of Trustees. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po at maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Thank you, Kong Ron. Now we take note of your manifestation.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes. Chair
Well,
Popoy.
we'd like to thank Congressman Ron Salo because in 2021, he was able to realign some funds for transnational education. So actually, 2 taon na pong hindi napupunduhan ito. Kasi wala ding funding last year, nakapag-realign si Congressman Salo ng... Kaya lang naka-FLR po yung kanyang realignment, kaya hindi pa rin po namin nakukuha yung pera. Nag-request kami for this year, konti lang hiningi namin, MOOE equipment, wala pa nga yung aggressive support for universities to internationalize, wala pong binigay sa amin. So, yun po ang kalagayan ng transnational education law.
Thank you, Sir
Yes,
Popoy.
Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po, Chair Popoy. So nakikiusap po tayo sa komite na tulungan po tayo para magkaroon po ng funding po ito. Kasi, Mr. Chair, sayang po ang tagal po natin pinaghirapan po na ipasa po yung batas. I suppose kasama rin po ng iba't ibang mga batas. Subalit at the end of the day, sayang din lang naman po yung efforts po natin. Ilang taon na pinagbuno po natin para lang may pasa. And at the end of the day, wala naman po palang pondo. So sana, Mr. Chair, malagyan po talaga natin ng pondo yung iba't ibang mga batas po nito na pinasa po natin para siguraduhin na ma-achieve po natin yung objectives kung bakit po natin pinasa. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Kong Ron, I agree with you na yung mga batas na pinasa natin dito sa House dapat talagang may pondo. Particularly yung Doktor sa Bayan, yung Transnational Education Law na you have passed. And now we proceed to the next interpolator from the minority, our Deputy Minority Leader, Congressman Janet Garin.
Thank you very much, Mr.
You're
Chair.
recognized.
Am I clear?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Maraming
You may
salamat
proceed,
po, Mr.
Kong
Chair.
Janet.
And a pleasant good afternoon to the CHED family headed by Chairman Popoy. In your proposed budget amounting to 52.6 billion, 98% or 51.5 billion apparently is new appropriations. Well, the remaining 2% is automatic appropriations. Can the chairman, Mr. Chair, enlighten us on this?
That has been the trend over the past years. The driver for the increase in the appropriation of CHED has really been free higher education. Pag tinanggal po yung budget para RA 10931, napakaliit po ng budget ng CHED sa totoo lang. Yan po ang nangyayari. Kaya ang medyo mas problema po ngayong year na ito ay pati yung mga batas na ipinasa ng Kongreso na kailangan namin i-implement, nadamay ho doon sa maliit na appropriation increase ng dahil lang talagang tumataas ho na consistently ay yung appropriation for free higher ed. So yung developmental projects po ng CHED ay talagang incremental lang yung increase na maliit.
Okay. And with that, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, of course, pandemic tayo ngayon. So masyadong malaki rin ang epekto nito because universities are also dependent to some extent to income that they can generate. However, on your projection, ano po ang epekto ng pandemya na ito dun naman sa mga income na nakukuha ng ating mga universities?
In terms of the reimbursement of free higher ed, actually wala hong negative impact because the enrollment in state universities and colleges and local universities and colleges continues to increase. Ang naapektuhan ho ng enrollment na bumaba ay private universities. But as far as SUCs and LUCs are concerned, dahil free ang tuition tsaka miscellaneous, mas marami pong mga estudyante ang gusto talagang lumipat sa state universities and colleges para hindi nila pinoproblema yung pambayad ng tuition. So yung tuition...
In other words, Mr. Chair, Chairman Popoy, yung pong ating mga estudyante, maraming lilipat from the private institutions to the state universities and colleges. And this will actually mean mas malaking kailangan ng Commission on Higher Education.
Kinokontrol po natin yung transfers kasi ayaw natin na masyadong malaki yung lumipat dahil maapektuhan naman po ang ating private universities. Kaya ang pag-increase ng enrollment sa state universities and colleges is really based on the carrying capacity of the universities because we don't want to compromise the quality of education. So we're talking about issues like access to laboratories, to libraries, etc. So, but because of COVID, we have seen a increase of transfers from private to public universities because of COVID. Yan ho nakikita in many regions. So, sapat naman po yung binibigay na pondo sa RA 10931 to address the possible increase in enrollment. Kaya naman po ng pondo. Hindi namin kailangan ng dagdag sa RA 10931 para doon sa anticipated increase in enrollment. Doon nyo na lang po ibigay doon sa mga ibang pangangailangan namin. Kahit na ho hindi na dagdagan yung pang RA 10931.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Chairman Popoy, how about face-to-face, limited face-to-face classes? What's your take on this? I remember reading in the news that you gave clearance for, I think, 3 universities in Mindoro to have limited face-to-face classes. Ano po ang naging impact nito? Nagkaroon ba ng mga nagpositibo? Is it something alarming? Where these students, did these students bring the infection to their houses and families?
The approval for limited face-to-face in medicine and allied health sciences was approved by President in January 11 of 2021. So since then, 118 public and private universities has been inspected jointly by CHED, DOH, local governments, local IATF, and allowed to have limited face-to-face. Iba-iba yung starting point nila. Meron mga nagsimula ng maaga, UP College of Manila, UST, UERM, Fatima, yung mga yan, January pa lang nagsimula na. Merong mga iba ngayon pa lang magsisimula pagbukas ng semester. Some of the universities are more cautious than the others, or it takes them longer to retrofit and be inspected. But so far, the data is, in terms of infection, out of the more than 10,000 students that are allowed for face-to-face, those are already doing face-to-face, the infection rate is less than 1%. It is 0.3% of the students got infected and 1.4% of the faculty members. All those who were infected, nobody was hospitalized. Most were asymptomatic. They were brought to the facilities in coordination with the local government units. So I think the guidelines are working, and the infection levels are not as bad as we had been worried about. That's why we have recommended already to the IATF to expand the limited face-to-face for engineering, maritime, and HRM, and the IATF has endorsed it to the President for approval already.
In other words, Mr. Chair, the limited face-to-face classes, although there are accompanying risks, the benefits far outweigh the risks because we have an increasing number of people being vaccinated. Second, the quality of education is different if you're virtual as compared to actual face-to-face classes. And we also have to consider the learning capacity of our students in some courses, not to mention the need for economy to move on and to recover. Bottom line, the benefits far outweigh the little risks that we have if we pursue limited face-to-face classes. This is basically what our chairman is saying. Am I right, Mr. Chair, Your Honors?
Yes, Madam Congresswoman, I think the implementation of the 24-page guideline is thorough, and we are able to see compliance. I think there are courses or subjects that really cannot be done virtually, especially in many fields. Clinical internship, for example, laboratory courses, in dentistry, working with plasticized models on how to fix the teeth of individuals. If we don't allow face-to-face, we run the risk of having students who don't have the skills when they graduate, and assuming they pass the licensure, they are dealing with human lives when they become professionals. It's very dangerous not to allow them to have face-to-face. The same with other courses like engineering, maritime. The students in the maritime program have to do shipboard training. They have to be trained in vessels. If we don't allow it, either they don't graduate or they graduate but with less skills, and when they become professionals, their competence can be questioned. So we really have to do it for many degree programs that cannot be delivered purely online, Madam Congresswoman.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, because basically we just have to learn to live with COVID. The world cannot stop because we have a virus. We can defeat it, but as of the moment, we have to live with it. Probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we might be able to be COVID-free. In earlier, our colleagues asked the Honorable Chairman, Chairman Popoy, with regards to his proposed 62 billion budget. However, apparently what DBM approved was only 52 billion, and a question was forwarded. A question was asked, what were the projects that were not approved? And the chairman responded that these are newly legislated programs. However, in an interview with GMA, you mentioned that the difference, which is roughly around 9.6 billion, is intended for capital outlay projects to improve CHED's regional offices, which I really support. So ano po ba yung natanggal? Pondo para sa ating mga regional offices, or is it funds for newly created legislations?
Sama-sama na po yun. We were requesting that funds be made available to make our regional offices smart offices. Wala din pong binigay. Pero mas maliit po yung pondong yun para sa regional office compared to what we requested for Doktor para sa Bayan, which was not given. We want to assist the universities really upgrade their facilities. We requested a 1 billion appropriation. We did not get any. For the scholarship for Dr. Parasabayan students, we requested for 500 million. We only got 250 million. And then there is no allocation for transnational education law, which Congress passed, and also improvements in the Philippines Qualification Framework, which is RA 10968. So magkakasama po yun doon sa mga hindi nabigyan ng pondo sa aming NEP for 2022.
So Mr. Chair, bottom line is medyo mahirap po talagang humingi ng pondo, no? And will the Honorable Chairman agree with me if I say na kapag ang pondo ng isang departamento ay na-approve, alam po natin na dumaan yun ng karayom. And alam naman po natin talagang may pondo yun. Kasi the reason that other requests are not approved ay dahil walang pondo yun. Pero pagka na-approve, ipinasa sa Kongreso, ipinasa naman ng Kongreso at Senado, at pinirmahan ng Presidente, ito ay may pondo. Will the Chairman agree with the context that I am laying out?
Kailangan ho namin ang tulong ng Kongreso para mailagay ito. Saka na ho namin problemahin yung FLR. Kasi marami hong...
No, Mr. Chair, my apologies, Honorable Chairman. My question can actually be answered with yes or no. It's quite a direct question. Will you agree with me in my statement na napakahirap magpa-approve ng pondo? At kapag ang pondo at budget ng isang executive office ay na-approve na, hindi naman po yan i-approve kung walang kaakibat na pondo. It's simply answerable by yes or no, Mr. Chair.
Definitely, Madam Congresswoman. Ang mensahe lang ho namin sa Congress, kung hindi ho mapopondohan ito, please do not hold us accountable for implementation. Kasi ang expectation ng Congress, pag ma-implement. Pero kung wala naman hong pondo, basta wag nyo ho kaming sisingilin, wala ho kaming magagawa. Yun ho ang aming mensahe.
Mr. Chair, Your Honors, the reason why I asked this, I was surprised. No? This is actually my last question. I was surprised that in your presentation, your second to the last slide showed the status of for later releases. Taon-taon po ba merong mga tinatawag na FLR, yung Commission on Higher Education?
Dalawang budget year na po na nakalagay sa GAA yung mga FLR. These are realignments done to the NEP. They are labeled as FLR and that has to be approved by the DBM and the Office of the President. Meron naman ho mga FLR na nakuha na namin, meron mga FLR na nakapending pa lang. Sana makuha namin lahat ng FLR. Ang commitment namin, once we get the money, we will implement it.
Mr. Chair, can we probably ask the other officers of the Commission on Higher Education who have been with CHED probably for the past, let's say, 5 or 10 years, karaniwan po ba itong FLR na nakikita natin?
Sa aking pagkakalam ho, 2 budget year pa lang yan. Yung FLR, yung concept ng fourth year release.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mr. Chair. Kasi nakakadurog po ng puso. Tinitingnan ko, no, it's subsidies for tuition fees for medical students. Kaya nga yung mga gustong magdoktor, talagang pumupunta sa Western Visayas State University at sa UP. Kasi napakamahal po magbayad ng pag-aaral ng pagkadoktor. And if you go to private institutions, academic scholarships, it's quite difficult to get. No? In other words, dito po nakasalalay yung kinabukasan ng Pilipinas. Now that we have a pandemic, it's a clear proof that public health transcends all aspects of our life. And it even plays the core, one of the cores. We can say that it's the heart. It's an adrenaline that pumps our economy. Dito nakikita rin natin, assistance to HEIs for K-12 transition program. At ito po ba yung programa na natutulungan natin yung mga state universities sa K+12? Then you have also access to quality tertiary education, scholarship to faculty, establishment of basic e-library facilities. Under the new normal, this is something. This is already a need Kung dati-rati, some people were saying technology is just a want. Now, technology is a need. Mas kailangan mo ang koneksyon at internet para makapagtrabaho, makapag-aral, makapagnegosyo, at makausap. In fact, we are using that now. Sabihin na natin hindi kailangan yung acquisition of lab. Sabihin na natin hindi kailangan yung office equipment and furnitures. But then you also have the transnational higher education. Sabihin na natin hindi kailangan ang CHED auditorium. Sabihin na natin hindi kailangan ang shuttle services. But look, you have the supplies and materials for implementation of COVID-19 preventive measures in the workplace. At kung ito ay, you have the medical scholarship and return service program. You even have the foreign scholarship training for civilian military officials and the development, seed fund for development of medical schools in SUC. So all of this, Mr. Chair, Your Honors, when you proposed this for the budget of 2021, masasabi ba natin kailangan ito ng ating mga kababayan?
Ang madami po kasi dito ay nakita ng mga membro ng Kongreso na kakulangan nung dinidiscuss yung budget ng CHED. Kaya sila po yung naglagay nitong realignment. Kami naman po, nag-agree kami doon sa marami rito na kailangan talaga ng tulong. Kaya't sinusuportahan namin kung ano man ang realignment na ilalagay sa budget ng CHED at ang commitment namin ay i-implement ito.
Mr. Chair, with a yes and no answer, maski sabihin na natin nakita ng Kongreso at Senado at inilagay dyan, pagka hindi kailangan, hindi nyo naman ilalagay, di ba? At dahil kailangan siya, nilagay natin, tinanggap natin at naponduhan. And this was the budget approved by Congress, approved by Senate, signed by our President. Tsaka kung basahin mo, sabihin na natin hindi kailangan ng sasakyan. O sige, pero this is like medical students. It's subsidies for tuition fees. These are scholarships. Will the chairman agree with me when I say na kapag may batang gustong mag-aral at gustong-gustong maging profesional, hindi po ba dapat we take advantage of that dream, of that hope, of that Filipino para maging mas productive siyang citizen ng ating bansa?
Ang sagot po namin ay kailangan lahat ito. Kaya nga po nire-request namin yung FLR release because we are to implement it. Wala naman po question na itong mga realignment na ito ay talaga makakabuti sa higher education.
Yeah, with that, Mr. Chair, no, kasi ang nakikita ko dito, here we are deliberating the proposed budget of the Commission on Higher Education and Development. Me personally, I would like to go back to that 62 billion. Kasi kailangan lahat yon. I'm seeing our CHED offices, Diyos ko, napakasikip. Not only that, there's no proper ventilation anymore because of many people. And if you talk about Delta pandemic, Lambda pandemic, the possibility of a new pandemic, you need to dissipate the virus in the air. So the regional offices need these funds that has been slashed. Pero ibang palagay na natin, okay, dun lang tayo sa 52. Well, we are discussing this. If we approve this and we are deliberating on this budget, do we have an assurance that what we are discussing here will not be labeled as FLR? Can we get that assurance from the chairman? I mean, no offense, Mr. Chair. No, I do know that it is something beyond the powers of Chairman Popoy. And I have very high respect with the Commission on Higher Education. Napakalaki po ng naitulong nila sa atin. But Mr. Chair, what I cannot understand is that here we are deliberating budgets, working day and night, But at the end, there are colatilias, the basis of which does not have legal basis. It is with a sad heart, Mr. Chair. This is not against the Commission on Higher Education. It's basically my own resistance to the fact that the CHED itself is being held, so much so that important projects are not being implemented. Naubos yung oras nila sa pakiusap na i-release yung mga FLRs. So with that, Mr. Chair, instead of finishing deliberation of the proposed budget of the Commission on Higher Education and Development, I think it's time to go back and discuss with DBM and assess the real process. Because if we are not being allowed to exercise our duty in Congress, then there's no point discussing the budget now. With this, Mr. Chairman, and of course, I do hope that the CHED family will understand me on this, I move that we suspend consideration of the proposed budget of the Commission on Higher Education and Development, pending an answer from whichever agency is responsible to explain to us and to commit to us that they will never again put FLRs in the proposed budget of the Commission on Higher Education. So
I second the
move,
motion.
Mr. Chair.
I second the motion, Mr. Chair.
It has been moved and seconded, duly seconded, that there's a motion to suspend and there's no objection. Any objection from the members present in the Zoom and physically present? If there's no objection, the motion is carried. We are now suspending the deliberation, the budget briefing of the Commission on Higher Education. This budget briefing is now suspended. Thank you.
Kasi tama naman yung point eh. Clarify muna sa DBA. Ang dami, lahat halos ng agency. Na-COVID eh.